Hello, welcome to Monday. It feels like August already. I'm so bored. But we're gonna go over some of y'all's grade stuff, and we're gonna go over the first 3 chapters of The Outsiders for the 30 of you that have read that far. So we got 1st, 2nd, 4th, 5th, 7th. I teach 94 total students. 65 people have turned in chapter 1 questions, which means that I put in 29 zeros. 56 have turned in chapter 2. I put in 38 zeros. 41 have turned in chapter 3, and 53 I've put in zeros. Though I see that some people are already turning in chapter 3 because I put this on Instagram a little earlier. I put in 120 zeros. That's insane. As far as your classes go, first period is doing pretty good. You got 5 A's. The highest is 110. I will tell y'all, all of these people with the highest, they've done all the assignments. The people that have these F's, you have not done the assignments. I will tell you, do these assignments, y'all. First period, a lot of them have been doing it, and their class average is an 81. Second period has a 77%. 4th period, 70.8%. That's because y'all talk too much. Get these grades up. 5th period is 79.9%. And 7th period, 68.4%. That is the lowest. Y'all have the most amount of F's out of every class. And you also have the least amount of A's. And coincidentally, y'all have only had like 3 people consistently turning in these questions. Same with 4th period. Weird how these 2 periods are the lowest and they have the least amount of kids turning their stuff in. Turn your stuff in, y'all. Those of you who are not doing the work now have also not done it through the school year, and I will recommend that you get held back. You know, it's not fair if you get a free pass to go on to 8th grade without having to do any work. And basically, if you failed the first 3 quarters, so the first semester and this last quarter, I will recommend that you get held back. Do your work, guys. It's not that hard. Some of y'all are saying this book is too long. It is not that long. Stop complaining. This is a million times easier than Romeo and Juliet. It's like based in Tulsa. It's written pretty simply. It was written by a high school student. And it's stuff that you're not going to read a lot. It's not considered a super academic book, but it has a lot of good ideas in it. Please read it. Give it a try. But we are going to go over some important things that have happened in the first 3 chapters. Y'all are supposed to read chapters 4 and 5 this week. I know a lot of you have finished it. That's cool too, but we're going to go over some important stuff. So like I said, S.E. Hinton is the author. She wrote this book in high school because she felt like there weren't enough books that talked about things she wanted to read, so she wrote a book. Also, side note, I know that my nails look hideous. I actually ripped off my nail from knitting, which I know is the most hardcore thing you've heard all day, but I already know I look stupid. So you got your exposition. This is when you're exposing the backbone of the story. You have the characters, the Curtis brothers, Ponyboy, who's the main character. We're reading the story from his point of view. His brothers, Soda Pop and Derry. And Soda Pop is like goofy. He's the middle kid. He's a dropout, but he's like supposed to be handsome and great. And then Derry is hardworking. He was supposed to go to college on a football scholarship, but their parents died in a car accident, so he kind of has to act like the dad now. He's really tough on Ponyboy. But you got the 3 Curtis brothers living in their house. You got 2-Bit Matthews and Dally. They're part of the Greasers along with Ponyboy and Soda Pop and Derry. There's also a few other ones like Steve Randall, but you know, they don't play as big a part in the beginning of the book. Dally, even though his name is Dallas Winston, he is not from Dallas, Texas. He's from New York. He's actually like from gangs in New York. They call them like hoods. So there's the difference in this book between like greasers and hoods. Hoods are the ones that are like really, really like bad news bears, and greasers are kind of just like a gang, like a family, and they grease their hair back. If you like don't know what a greaser looks like, I'll post a picture. They get that name because they're greasing their hair back. They put grease in it and they like swoop it back. You have Cherry Valance and Marcia. I know it looks like Marcia, but apparently it's pronounced Marcia. These are Soch girls. And then you have the Soches are the rich kids. It's set in a small town in Oklahoma in the 1960s, and it's set in Tulsa in the movie. You have that first big problem, the conflict, and that's when the Socs jump Ponyboy after the movies, but the Greasers, they come in and save him, and that happens in chapter 1. That's like the very first thing that happens. And then the rising action are all of the events that make the problem worse. So you have in chapter 2, Ponyboy, Johnny, and Dally, they go to the movies. They meet Cherry and Marcia. Johnny stands up to Dally, which is apparently incredible that he does that, because Johnny, they describe him a lot as like a lost puppy dog, and Dally is like tough. And so Dally leaves. They're hanging out with Cherry and Marcia, and then 2-Bit comes along, and he's kind of flirting with Marcia. Cherry and Pony get along really well. And when Cherry and Pony end up going to get popcorn, he ends up telling her about the story when Johnny gets jumped. There's a blue Mustang full of Socs, and they beat him up so bad that he starts crying. And that's really important because he lives in a pretty abusive home. And one chapter says that his dad beats him with a 2x4, which is like a big piece of wood. And he gets beaten and neglected a lot. So for him to be crying from that, they beat him up pretty bad. And there's specifically one Soc with like rings on his hand, and they wreck him basically. And then, wow, look at me, I'm so high tech. I actually don't have a printer at home, so that's why I'm doing this. In chapter 3, Pony, Johnny, and 2-Bit are walking the girls home. And they're like discussing the difference between Socs and Greasers, and Cherry is saying that the Socs are like, they try to be cool to the point that they don't feel anything, and that's why they're starting the fights, so that they can feel something. And she's saying that the Greasers are so emotional that it makes them violent, and that's why they start the fights, because they feel things so much more strongly. And an important thing that she brings up is she tells Pony, you look like a guy who watches sunsets. And he's like, yeah, I do. And like the meaning of that is everybody watches the same sunset. You can be poor, rich, good kid, bad kid, but everybody watches that same sunset. And it's something that we all have in common. So while they're talking about that, they're walking to 2-Bit's house to get his car to get the girls home because they had left their boyfriends because they were drunk, bad kid bears. And their boyfriends drive up in that blue Mustang, the same blue Mustang that Johnny got jumped by. And one of them, I believe it's Bob, is wearing that handful of rings, and Bob is Cherry's boyfriend. Which is pretty scandalous. And so the girls go home with them. 2-Bit, he like goes to a party. Johnny and Pony, they go to a vacant lot, and Ponyboy is like telling the story how much he loves the country, and both of them fall asleep. Johnny decides to wait. I'm gonna flip this around. Maybe you'll be more interested in watching my fat mouth talk. Johnny decides to stay in the vacant lot because his parents are abusive. It's freezing, but he'd rather be out there. Ponyboy goes home. He's supposed to be there by midnight, and it's something like 1:30 in the morning. And he gets home, and Derry is furious. And they didn't want to call the cops, even though they were worried, because if they catch any of the boys doing something wrong, they'll take them away from Derry and they'll separate them. So it's kind of a tricky situation that he's in. He gets really mad at Johnny, and Soda Pop is kind of stepping in, trying to help him. And Derry says, stop defending him. And Johnny gets upset, Ponyboy gets upset and says, don't you yell at my brother. And then Derry hits him, and he's never hit Ponyboy before. So Ponyboy gets mad. He runs away back to the vacant lot with Johnny, and he says, let's run away. And so they're starting to walk towards the park. So this is all the basis of like what starts the book. Some of y'all have just been clicking through the quizzes, which like you'll get some points maybe, but like, y'all, it's a pretty fast moving book. I know it seems slow in the beginning, but you got to get that basic knowledge of what's going on, because all of this stuff is important. There's not like, she's not putting in extra information that we're not going to bring up. Like there's definitely clues leading up to things that are going to happen later. So please read it. For the next few days, I will go look back at who's turned in chapter 1, 2, 3 questions, but keep on top of it, y'all. I scheduled the readings so you start with more at the beginning and then it gets less as we go, because I know y'all are going to get tired of this. So even though it seems like a lot now, it's really not that much. I want y'all to be engaged, and I want y'all to be able to have conversations over Zoom with us. And I want to have, for those of you who want to do fun projects, I want to do that with y'all. The book club is up and running. There's something for everyone. You don't have to join, but I think it's a fun thing to do. I know some of y'all are bored. We'll have like manga, comic books, graphic novels and stuff, different topics that we might not study in school. Cool. If you have any questions, you can email me. My email is all over Google Classroom. That's it. Hope y'all are staying safe in this coronavirus plague. Goodbye.